All right, you're here. It's episode 11, Off the Edge. I'm Jake Ellenbogen. He is Cameron Lynch. And today we will be talking about the NFC South and how well they did in their respective NFL draft classes. Before we dive into that, I'd ask you to like, subscribe, comment, rate, review wherever you are consuming this content.
Yep, all that.
It's how we keep growing. And man, we continue to grow, Cam. We're getting close to that 400 subscriber mark on YouTube. If you haven't already, definitely be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And we're already at 50,000 views on that channel.
Let's go. Let's keep running it up.
Hey, we also have a Twitter at Off the Edge Show. If you guys want to follow along with us, we are constantly posting content on there. And so before we move into the rest of this show, just want to let you know that betonline.ag is your number one source for all your basketball info, stats, news, and scores. Get the latest odds and lines, including the latest player reports for this year's pro basketball playoffs. BetOnline is always your sports information headquarters this season, as we have you covered for all your sports wagering needs: basketball, MLB, NHL, right to UFC, and boxing. BetOnline is the fastest, easiest way to get your betting info, including live betting options, your favorite casino and card games you can play right from your home. Head on over to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Be sure to use our promo code BELIEVE to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts. So Cam, NFC North and NFC South. We already did the NFC North. I'm already losing it. Atlanta Falcons. All right, this is we're gonna start this thing off with a bang. One of the top players in the entire draft class, who really no one knew where he was going to go because he plays the position known as running back, which has the dreaded 30 number behind it. Like as soon as you hit 30, it's like that's the brick wall. And there are guys that can get past it. Adrian Peterson is one of those guys, definitely. Frank Gore, shout out to him. But that's a position that is very rarely going to, you're going to see guys that are over 30 a lot. And so this is typically a one contract type of position here, following a rookie deal. And normally it's not with that same team, but the Falcons do not care, because even though they had almost 1,000-yard season out of last year's pick in the 5th round out of BYU, Tyler Algier, okay, even though they had that, they decided to go with Bijan Robinson, the talented, quote-unquote, generational running back out of Texas. Now, I thought this was about where he was supposed to go as far as my board is concerned, but I had him going in the late 20s due to the fact he plays the running back position, and I just wasn't sure how the NFL was going to value running backs in this draft. It was a really good, running back class, really depth-filled, but he ends up going 8th overall inside the top 10. Cam, what are your thoughts on this pick, my guy? Because I was a little surprised.
Yeah, I mean, Bijan Robinson, we talked about him being one of the better athletes coming out of the draft. So I love it. I had him coming out of number 15, Jake. I had him coming 15. I had him going to the Washington Commanders. They didn't take him. The Falcons took him. And, I feel like the Falcons are kind of going back to what they did a few years ago when they got Devontae Freeman, right? When they got Devontae Freeman, then followed up with your Todd Gurley there, bringing him from the Rams. But a guy like Bijan, clearly the Falcons love a good running back. They love a good running back, and Bijan is that. Like you mentioned, he went a little bit high, Jake. He went a little bit high on the list there. But at the end of the day, my man, he's a generational guy. He's a generational running back. We don't get to see great running backs in the NFL. I mean, we talk about our Todd Gurleys, your Ezekiel Elliott's, who's getting on that back end of his career. So it's gonna be good to see some fresh blood come in, Jake. I'm very familiar with the NFC South, playing with the Buccaneers. So the Falcons are trying to figure out how to raise some hell in that division. They got the Panthers as well, so they're gonna have to score some points on the football field. And Bijan Robinson can get that done in the pass game, the run game. He is Mr. Football. So I'm excited to see him there. But like we discussed, he went a little bit high there, Jake. So we'll see how that nets out.
Now, Ken, the reason why I was so surprised by this pick is that they had a 3.6% sack percentage last year. It was the second lowest quarterback pressure rate according to NFL.com at 22% in the league last season. And there were pass rushers there, and they decided to go with a running back after their guy that they found in the 5th round, his rookie year, runs for almost 1,000 yards. I was a little surprised by that, and I don't know how to feel. I think obviously this is a fantastic player, right? Talk about the prospect and everything. But if we were grading this pick, it would not be an A+ for me, because I think there were other needs that definitely there. I think there were guys worth taking, and I think you're running a risk taking a running back this high, almost negating your 5th round pick last year, who probably could still start, in my opinion. I thought Algier was awesome. I don't think he gets enough credit, so I got to just give a shout out to my guy Algier out of BYU. But it's not a knock on Bijan. I just think that they had bigger needs. In the 2nd round, though, they go out and they get your guy, Matt Bergeron, and he's really interesting. I had said this during the live draft stream I was doing. Bergeron is somebody that the league is split on. Some see him as a tackle, some see him as a guard. But the tackle they see is a guy that has elite level athleticism, okay? Can develop and turn it into something special. The guy that they see at guard is plug and play, ready to play right away, ready right out of the box, if you will, right? Mm-hmm. So here's my thing, and why, after further evaluation, while I had better, players on the board, in my opinion, based on my board, Bergeron was a little bit of a quote-unquote reach. I still think this is a really good pick, and actually, after further evaluation, I think it's a great pick, because I think right now, you have Jake Matthews, right? You have Caleb, McGarry. You're good at both tackle spots. You don't need him to have to just get thrown in the fire. So this is where you got better as a football team. You could say Bijan made them better, and he obviously is better than Algier as far as the overall upside. But this is when you really start getting better, because when you look at the offensive line room, now your offensive line, because I'd imagine they're the team that looked at Bergeron as a plug-and-play guard with developmental upside to take over for Jake Matthews at left tackle. And now we're cooking with gas can, because it's like, okay, well, once Jake Matthews is no longer needed, that's kind of harsh, but you know what I mean? He kind of, falls off a cliff or whatever. You got Matthew Bergeron you could throw right in there. So I really like this pick, Cam. And I think now you just added more depth by adding another guy in the interior. You have him, you have Chris Lindstrom, and you have Drew Dahlman, who you added in the 4th round, 2021. So Falcons offensive line looking good for young Desmond Ridder, who I had as my number 1 quarterback last year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what we talk about, Jake, right? We see this draft. Who are they supporting? What does that look like? And you're going to find out in those first couple of picks. So with Desmond Ridder and Taylor Heineke coming into the helm at quarterback, I'm sure they're going to battle it out a little bit there, Jake. But they got a weapon in the backfield. I think that just builds the confidence of the quarterback. If they know they got someone back there that can make it happen, that's going to increase their confidence. And then follow it up with Matthew Bergeron coming from Syracuse. My man can play guard and tackle. So that just gives a guy like Taylor Heineke say, hey, the Falcons believe in me. They brought me here for a reason. They supported me with these 2 picks. Let's ride. Let's roll. So, Jake, I know what you meant. I know what you said there. Some of these picks are a reach. I feel like a lot of these picks in the draft, a couple of them have been a reach. But to see where the Falcons are heading, right, Jake, at the end of the day, we don't really know what they need. They know what they need. So, who knows when it comes to the running back space? There could be injuries. There could be personality issues. So they're trying to find someone who can really take over the helm, and Bijan Robinson might be that guy. So we're not totally sure. We're just calling what we see. And what I'm seeing here is a team that's really doubling down on their quarterbacks by filling out this offense. And then on the defensive side, I know they jumped in the 3rd round and got some defensive guys as well. So I feel like they balanced it out a little bit. I got Atlanta as a B for me, Jake, overall. And I know we're going to dive into some of these other picks here, but I think they know what they need at the end of the day, like I said, and they got some quarterbacks that are coming in here and they need to support them. So I like it.
No, I agree with you. I actually so Bijan, Bergeron, 2 day 1 starters, Zach Harrison probably not starting. You have Bud Dupree, you have Lorenzo Carter, you have Calais. I don't know where his fit is on the team day 1. He's probably more of a situational, rotational guy. And I thought that was a little bit too early for my blood, but Clark Phillips III can just go right in there as the nickel corner for you. I mean, for real, he's really good coming out of Utah. I know there were a lot of people that were like convinced he could play on the outside. Personally, for me, I saw him as a nickel guy, so I think this is a really good fit for him. You get to play alongside guys like AJ Terrell, and Jeff Okuda is getting his second opportunity in the league. Following that the trade, the fresh feeling of going to a new team. So I think fitting Clark Phillips in there, really intelligent, just high football IQ, but also just a high motor out of Utah. He's going to help. That was a really good pick in the 4th. And then DeMarco Helms from Alabama, another safety that went in this draft in the 7th. They go out and get Javon Gwynn to add some depth, a guy that can play, he's center guard versatile. So, I think anytime you go out and you get a guy that can play 3 positions on your offensive line, you're cooking with gas in the 7th round. So I gave this draft a B-. I think it could have been a lot better. I think the Bijan Robinson pick just really it shows me what they're doing, and I get what they're doing. And I think it was honestly a little Todd Gurley remorse, because it was like, man, we were hoping the Rams just made a mistake, and Gurley was 100% like the same guy, but he wasn't the same guy, Cam. He didn't have the same explosiveness, and it pains me to say that because I love Todd, but he just didn't. And so I think the Falcons were like, what? We need that guy. We need that Saquon Barkley. We need that Ezekiel Elliott when he first came. And to me, my comparison for Bijan was Ezekiel Elliott. So I think you get that. Bergeron starts day 1 at guard, and then he gives you developmental upside at tackle. Zach Harrison hopefully can be a starter down the road. I mean, anytime you draft a guy in the first 3 rounds, you're hoping they would start. But they got to start in the 4th round, which kind of balances that out. In Clark Phillips the 3rd, they didn't have a ton to work with. There's not a lot of picks here, in this draft. So, I'm going to stick by a B-. I think it's definitely worth getting out of the C's, but it's not a top of the B there. I'm going to go with B-.
Yeah, and you just talked about it with Bijan. I'm going to the business side now, Jake. Let's put the business hat on. We talked football. Let's go to the business side. When you got a guy like Bijan coming into the Falcons Stadium, people are going to buy jerseys and they're going to jump into those seats, right? They just built that stadium a couple of years ago, so they got to pay some bills. So why not get a guy like Bijan to come in and support with those bills? You got a guy like Matthew Bergeron to help with that as well, to block for your guy like Bijan. And then you got Javon Gwynn. I mean, Jake, I think via PFF, right, Pro Football Focus, for folks who don't know, my man Gwynn had 34 reps on the bench press, Jake. I mean, that's a monster. Hard to move. Coming out of South Carolina, so that means he's had some SEC competition. He knows where guys are coming from when it comes to their bull rush, their speed. So you're getting that type of personality in there. And then you got DeMarco Helms from Alabama coming in at safety, right? And so you stacked up on the front side, on the offensive side. So now on the back end of the draft, you get some guys that, like you said, that can step in and play some defense early on. And we talked about this Alabama defense, the defensive backs in general. I mean, I think they had about 3 guys drafted, Jake, in X amount of rounds. And so just the excellence coming from that room, he can bring that mentality to the Falcons secondary. And then going back up, Jake, lastly to Zach Harrison, you mentioned Calais Campbell and Bud Dupree. Those guys, maybe on the back end of their career, especially Calais Campbell, but to learn from them, right, to develop, to even talk stuff, just talk regular stuff, life outside of football. Zach is going to be able to soak up a lot of knowledge and really push his career forward, right? When a guy like Calais Campbell, who's been playing as long as he has, he's going to be able to say a couple of things that are really going to accelerate Zach Harrison in his gameplay. I know when it comes to Ohio State, he had to work on his pass rush skills and a couple of different things, his toolkit. Well, Bud Dupree, he's going to be able to add to that. Calais Campbell, he's going to be able to add to that. And so I like the pick there, Jake. Like I said, I gave Atlanta a B. It would have been a B+, but like we mentioned, with Bijan Robinson filling that void, they didn't really have a void there. So like I said, I'm going to B rather than a B+, but they got to put butts in seats, Jake. They got it's coming from a business lens as well. So
that'll do it. I mean, no offense to your guy Bergeron, but not only a select few of guys are going to an NFL game with the entire sole purpose is to watch the offensive linemen. But
being from Canada, right? Like
yeah.
I'm sure some Canadians might come to the game, but they're going to want to come see Bijan for sure.
Absolutely. I think just one last thing before we wrap up, this draft class, move on to Carolina, is that you have Drake London, you have Matt Collins, Scott Miller. Frank Darby's a 6th-round pick in 2021. Kaderil Hodge is somebody I always have really liked. He's bounced around teams, but they signed him. I would have liked to see them actually go out and get one of these really talented receivers in this class. Now, this was a depth-filled receiver class, not a top-heavy, in my opinion. I mean, I think it was somewhat top-heavy at the top, but I mean, there wasn't anybody that was true like a number one wide receiver right out of the box, so to speak. But I would have liked to see, maybe instead of going, Zach Harrison, you go edge a little bit earlier, and, then you go, 3rd round, you go out and you get one of those stud wide receivers that went off the board. I think that they need some wide receiver help. They probably have a plan, or they're really high on these guys, but I think they definitely could have gotten their quarterback another weapon. I don't know. That's just my thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair, Jake. That's fair. I mean, you want to get guys, that can catch that football. And I know last year they got Kyle Pitts, right? And so do they think he's that X factor there? Who knows? But hey, I'm excited to see Bijan, Jake. I'm excited to see Bijan. I'm sure the whole Falcons fan base is.
He's going to be wearing number 7. So
Mike Vick. That's a statement.
Yeah, no, I thought so too. There are people complaining about it. I just think it's way, not getting too much into the whole Michael Vick piece. I'm a big fan of his overall game, and he was just explosive, just, electric. But he's remembered more as a guy that could have been, an all-timer on the Falcons, made some mistakes along the way, paid his dues, he put in the work and got back on his feet. And I look at him as an Eagle because, I mean, that's where he finished his career. That's where everyone remembers. That's where things were good, right? So I think, Bijan has every right to choose 7. It wasn't retired, and I don't think he has to ask permission for a guy that moved on to Philly. You know what I'm saying? I thought that was a little, ridiculous. But moving on to Carolina, and we went off on a little bit of a tangent there with the Falcons because they have a little bit more guys. I mean, Carolina, we've talked so much about Bryce Young. Yeah. I'm going to give this an A+ because Bryce Young pick, because when I look at it, this was the best quarterback there. I've been saying over and over and over again, when you look at the Panthers, this team can play in the playoffs. They can host a playoff game. They can win a playoff game. Look at the way they played. I know, Cam, you're a Tampa Bay Buck guy, and I'm not trying to dig you underground or anything.
No favorites here.
But no favorites. But last year, I mean, you have to admit Carolina was they were coming for Tampa, and if they had Bryce Young at the end of the year instead of Sam Darnold, who I don't think he played all that bad, but if they had Bryce Young, there's a good chance that they would have won that division. They were this close, man. They were closing in on Tampa. So I think this year, they get it done. And I was a big fan of that pick. The Mingo pick was interesting. They went high upside, a guy that kind of compares similarly to, an A.J. Brown, a Deebo Samuel, built in that same light. I think he immediately fits in as a slot receiver. You have Terrace Marshall, you have Adam Thielen, you have DJ Chark, you have Laviska Shenault, who I think everyone forgot about, but, I think he still has some value that people aren't talking about. They still have Preston Williams and Shi Smith. There's a lot of talented receivers that are just not home run names, right? Not a ton of, big time, hey, you ask your mom if she knows Adam Thielen. Maybe she knows Adam Thielen. Maybe she knows DJ Chark, but she probably doesn't know Shi Smith. And I think Shi Smith is a talented receiver. So the Mingo piece, there, I have no issue with them going high upside. It was a little high for me personally. I would have gone in a different direction, but they already have some guys there. They have veterans, Adam Thielen is going to help him a lot. And then I thought the DJ Johnson pick was a mega reach. Not even, I'm not trying to be a jerk here, but I had a 7th round grade on the guy. So they pick him at 80th overall. I was a little surprised on that. And then they got my guy Chandler Zavala, who I personally was able to speak with during this process. Great guy. He's been through a lot. You talk about him playing at, a really, really small school, and then he ends up transferring, and, NC State ends up bringing him on. I mean, this guy has a really cool story. We mentioned him. I think I was on the Believe in Rams podcast, and then Jimmy Robinson, safety out of Florida State. You're getting a DB out of Florida State. There's been a lot of good ones. He has some good tape in the 5th round. I like their draft class, Cam. Overall, I'm going to say, though, it's a B- with a really top-heavy selection in Bryce Young that stops it from being in the C's, my guy, because as much as I like Zavala, as much as I like, Bryce Young, like Mingo, I don't have an issue with, but the DJ Johnson pick was a severe reach, in my opinion, in the third round. This is where you need to get a day one starter for your team. And I just really think that pick, when all those guys were on the board there, and to me, when you look at the Panthers, like I thought they should have gone out and gotten a more NFL ready edge. And honestly, an interesting one would have been our guy, Isaiah McGuire.
Yeah, the Carolina Panthers, I got a B for him here, Jake. We talk about, just their whole draft class here, right? It's not that stout. It's not that stout. You see some other teams, they have multiple people they've traded, they flipped, they flopped. And it seems like the Panthers are like, okay, we're gonna get our guy. We're gonna call it a day. And so, you got Jonathan Mingo, you got someone for him to throw the ball to as well in the draft. So they're gonna be able to travel to North Carolina together and be in that freshman class, which is really cool. I mean, you got a guard as well in Chandler. We spoke about him, like you said, on the Believe in Rams podcast. Just his ability as well. So you got some folks that can protect Bryce Young. But Jake, we want to see a little bit more, right? I know they had the first pick, and like I said, it seems like they just cashed in out after that one. So, like I said, I gave them a B. But we kind of go back to the point, right, where you mentioned that the Panthers, you feel like, are going to host a playoff game. I like it, Jake. I like it. Just seeing how things are shaping up, even though they didn't do too well in the draft, right? They got Bryce, so like you can say they did really well, but I can see that as well, just the way they're shaping up here. But like we talked about, it seems a little shallow. After Bryce, everything else seems a little bit shallow. Going to your DJ Johnson here with that reach, my man ran a 4.49, Jake. So, when a guy running like that, in an effective defense, the Panthers always plays tough nose football. So a guy running a 4.49 right at 261, sign him up, sign him up. I know we got Burns on the other side there. So I think they're going to definitely cause some havoc. And then going back to Jimmy Robinson coming out of Florida State, anytime you got a guy come out of Florida State, your LaMarcus Joyners, anytime a DB is titled with that Florida State on there, they're going to be a baller. Jalen Ramsey. So the Panthers, it might seem like it's not deep right now, but at the end of the day, come the season when you have to play, they're going to show up, and I can see them in the playoffs. But they got to be for me as well.
Yeah. So you got to B, I got to B-. We move on to the New Orleans Saints here, and this team is really interesting. They're dealing with a lot. I mean, they finally were able to get rid of the Sean Payton contract there. They got some draft capital. I think when you look at everything in regards to the Saints, it's been kind of weird, right? Like they don't have a ton to show for in the recent history. They don't have a ton to show for it, and you can say whatever happened in the Rams playoff game has something to do with it, but I think it goes beyond that. They've had a lot of talent, and they just don't have enough W's to show for it. And so I think, you see, Dennis Allen, who, of course, is the head coach there. And, they added, guys like Pete Carmichael and Joe Woods, and, just kind of built out that coaching staff, and, added guys in this draft that I like. But this is another interesting draft class where Brian Breesy, who you had mentioned in our mock draft, he's somebody that's, physical. He has some pop behind his pads. I mean, the guy, he's a fighter, in the trenches. I mean, really. And then, Foskey, he looks the part. You ever hear the term looks like Tarzan, plays like Jane? It's not really like exactly that. But I feel like the guy is perfectly built for the edge defender position, whatever that looks like as a 3-4 outside linebacker, however you want to use him. But I just don't see him, playing like how he should on tape. And I think that's fair. And then Kendre Miller, I really like that pick, because what he's going to do is he's going to make sure that you got Jamal Williams, who's a touchdown magnet. He had 18 last year, red zone guy. When you get in the ball, you get at the goal line, give it to Jamal, right? I mean, That's just no questions asked. So we don't know about the whole Alvin Kamara situation. We don't know how many games he's going to miss, if he missed games. But if he does, Jamal Williams can be that guy, but I think Kendre Miller has a shot to start. And, they look more at like, Jamal Williams, they want to save him for those short and intermediate, gains. So I like the Kendre Miller pick. Saldiveri out of Old Dominion is a guy that I think they like there. Add some depth behind a really stout offensive line. You have guys like Cesar Ruiz and Eric McCoy, Ryan Ramczyk, Andrus Pete, and Trevor Penning, who they spent a first-round pick on in 2022. I like that pickup. Jake Hayner's a guy we've discussed before on one of our shows. We talked so much draft this offseason. It was like, I don't even remember which, but yeah, Jake Hayner, fun fact here. I'm sure you probably already know, he's going to the Saints. He's going to be playing with Derek Carr, and Derek Carr went to Fresno State. So, it's another one of those, Matthew Stafford, Stetson Bennett. Then you have a Jake Hayner, Derek Carr. And I think that gets over the big hurdle is, quarterback, clear QB1. How is he going to operate with the backup? So that's what I'll say about that. Jordan Howden was a solid pick. He helps you in the 5th round. A.T. Perry was a fantastic pick. I mean, that's exactly who I've been talking about him. I've been singing his praises. My wide receiver 3 in the entire draft they got in the 6th round. So I might be wrong on him if he fell to the 6th round. NFL talent, maybe NFL talent's wrong too. We'll see. But I really like the pick in the 6th round, Cam. And overall, I'll let you throw yours in. But I'm gonna give the Saints a B- because they found value in Hayner. They found value in Perry. I like the Miller pick, and I think Breesy is going to start day 1.
Okay. Yeah, Jake, I like it as well. I'm going to go with another B as well for the Saints with Breesy. I mean, we talked about it, Jake. He was one of my guys as well. Just his pass rush ability, the way he can pick and wrap. I mentioned that some of his better rushes are when he's able to wrap and make moves. Even watching the draft and seeing him, they talked about just his leadership ability, right? When he was one of the better players coming out of high school and as a freshman at Clemson. And so, they talked about just his leadership ability and his ability to get everyone together and galvanize his team. So it's really cool to see him there. Cam Jordan, I'm sure is going to be super happy to have a guy like him with him. And then they doubled down with Isaiah Foskey. So Jake, you said look like Tarzan, play like Jane. We don't want that to happen. I know they talk about sometimes his pass rush numbers, his sack numbers. He had a nice amount of sack numbers, but his ability to pass rush, his production, it didn't really match up, right? His numbers were high, but his effectiveness and his impact as a pass rusher wasn't as high. So I'm sure he's going to learn a lot from Cam Jordan. And that's the beauty, right, of drafting guys like this is they can develop, they can grow. And I think that's extremely important. Kendre Miller, we talked about our guys, right, here on Off the Edge, and he was one of my guys as well. Coming out of TCU. Jake, one thing I do know is my man was in the college football playoffs, right? And that experience is invaluable. We always talk about the UGA athletes and how they're champions and how they're going to, bring that much more value to their teams. I do think a guy like Kendre Miller is going to do that as well. Going to the Saints, they need everything they can get, right? If Alvin Kamara is kind of on the bubble, well, they need a guy that's confident. Everyone's seen him in the playoffs. Hey, let's roll. And keep to your point with H.E. Perry, I'm gonna jump down a little bit here. We talked about some defensive guys going to the offense a little bit with Jake Hayner and H.E. Perry. H.E. Perry is a definite possessional receiver. I had in my notes, if you need a first down, throw that ball to A.T. Perry. When it comes to his speed, he's not a blazer like that, Jay. He's not going to really blow the top off, but he's going to be a great possession receiver. And the Saints are going to need that, right? With this new change of guard at the Saints, they're going to need people who are reliable. And, a guy like Jake Hayner playing as backup, that's going to be great, right? Because you mentioned that Stetson Bennett piece. It's a trust thing, Drake. When you got a guy that came from your school, it's a trust factor. Therefore, your gameplay is going to go up. My question is, what's going to happen with Jameis, right? I mean, we're talking about the draft here. We're going to go to the Buccaneers here pretty soon as well. But former first-round pick overall, Heisman winner, and is now sliding and slipping a little bit, Jake. So I'm curious to see how things are going to shape up for him. But it just seems like going back to this draft piece that they've put pieces around these quarterbacks to make them successful in a wide receiver, in the tackle, and in a running back. So I'm curious, Jake, but what are your thoughts about Jameis? Because I don't think we can pass by here without talking about our guy Jameis.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, and I've been somebody kind of banging the table for Jameis Winston. I don't know if he's gotten the most fair shake in New Orleans. I feel like something was promised, and it just whatever. I don't really know what to say as far as that. Just didn't work out. But all in all, I think when you look and keep in mind, Taysom Hill still throws the ball every now and then.
Yeah,
so
it's true.
How is this offense going to look? Is this going more traditional now? I mean, now that Sean Payton is not coming back, he is now in Denver. Is that Sean Payton aura with the you gotta use Taysom Hill this way? Is that gone? Are they just going to use him as a tight end now? Probably not, right? Because they have a weapon, and you sang his praises one time. We talked about Taysom Hill. You're like, man, that guy was the personal protector. That guy is the like he just does it all.
He can do it all.
Yeah, so he's just a football player. I mean, you hear that term a lot, and that is probably the most overused term. And it's probably the sign that, after you just reached on a player, he's just a football player. All right. So you gave me no reason as to why you picked him. You're just like, yeah, he's a football player. I didn't get that. I mean, I thought the NFL draft, for the National Football League, I didn't know you picked football players, but no, in all honesty though, I mean, Taysom Hill really is. He's a positionless player that can play all the positions you ask him to. So I think when you go back to Jameis though, it's going to create a nice little battle in camp because Jameis is fighting for his career right now because I don't think he wants to be a backup, but I don't think he really has a choice. I mean, that's the thing. So here's my advice for Jameis. Not that he's going to take it, but you put your head down, you get to work, you push Jake Haener. If the cards fall and Jake Haener's not the guy, he's the guy they choose and you never had a shot, well, you go out there in preseason, you put tape out there. And this is a league where, I mean, we've seen it in a blink of an eye. Guy can go down with an injury. And Jameis Winston, whether you want to knock him or not, his 30 for 30 season, he still had 33 touchdowns, my guy. And I'll tell you right now, I'd rather have Jameis Winston under center if I just lost my starting quarterback than have a rookie quarterback that just has to be thrown in the fire and is not ready for that moment. And so I think that is the opportunity there. That's the ideal instance for Jameis being. I think right now he needs to, maybe his career has gone away from him being a starting quarterback in the NFL. Now he has to go into Andy Dalton mode. Like, how do I survive? And Andy Dalton's made a living just surviving in the league, being ready when needed, being a guy that learns the playbook, being a mercenary. The guy played a ton of time with the Bengals. And now I've lost track of how many teams he's been on. So, I mean, shout out to him, though. He's kept himself ready and calm, cool, collected. Another guy like that, Teddy Bridgewater. Another guy like that, Jacoby Brissett. So, unfortunately, I think that, Jameis Winston may not have gotten that fair shake, but it doesn't matter. I mean, the fact of the matter is, realistically, Jameis is going to have to pivot into that type of journeyman, Johnny on the spot type of guy.
Yeah. And Jake, I feel like we can do a whole off the edge episode with how quarterbacks are surviving after, being at the top of the mountain, right? Like,
yeah, we really could.
Baker Mayfield, we're about to talk about the Bucs next, but Baker Mayfield, he's trying to figure this stuff out, right? I mean, it's a full process. It's a full process. These guys are number one overall picks, right? And then now they're fighting to stay on a roster. Kyler Murray, depending on how his career pans out, what will that look like? So, it's like you said, hats off to these guys though, because they're fighting, they're trying to figure it out. And Jameis Winston's on a 1-year deal. So Jake, how I see it, right? How I see it, Derek Carr is your starter through and through. He kicks things off a little bit. Training camp, preseason, you see Jameis a lot of the snaps. Like you said, see what he can do. Make sure you lower that number down and when it comes to interceptions. And then Haener, he's your guy that just on game days, he might not dress, right? He might have the clipboard, but he's on the roster. He's ready to rock and roll. And then, you're Taysom Hill. He's your third quarterback come game time. If you actually need a third quarterback to step in, he's the one to do it. And the reason why I think we're doubling down on this quarterback position so much, Jake, is we've seen it with the Rams. If you don't have a quarterback that can step in and win some football games, you're going to be in trouble. And so with Jameis being on that 1-year deal, he's a guy that can step in and win some football games. So I just going back to the draft, though, I think Haener, he's going to be in great hands with those guys, those veterans. So, I mean, hey, the Saints, like I said, overall, I'll give them a B. And yeah, let's see what they do in the NFC South.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with my B minus, Cam, and I'll just say this Jake Haener kid is real. Okay, when I watched him, I'm like, all right, you hear the word gamer. I'm not trying to sound cliche, but he's a gamer, right? And you watch his tape against just anybody. UCLA I think stood out the most to me. Guy's in pain. Guy's playing through pain. He knows he needs to elevate his team, and that's what he does on tape. So he had a really good Senior Bowl. He's a guy that I think a lot of teams fell in love with throughout the draft process. It was a matter of, well, who's going to blink first? Like, who's going to take him? And the Saints are like, we're not even going to waste a breath. We're going to take him in the 4th round because we like him that much. And, there's some people saying, oh, you should have gone the 5th or the 6th. No, if you like a quarterback, you pick the quarterback. You don't beat around the bush, because quarterback's that position where you can't be like, oh, we'll just get the other guy, right? It's more of like this guy can end up being the face of my franchise, and I need to be careful, because if I go out and I get the wrong guy, then I'm going to lose my job if the guy that I got over him, right? Like, okay, he goes to my division rival and he kills it. Like, Brock Purdy could cost somebody a job. I'm not saying he's going to. He's Mr. Relevant. Everybody missed on him. The 49ers picked him with, the final pick in the draft. So it's not exactly like they hit on him. They got him at the very end, But, I mean, that's the thing, though, is like, you got to be careful. I think that's when you look at it the way like mock drafts are like explained, people will be like, oh, I'll just get this quarterback. No. You need to love your quarterback that you're drafting, my guy, because that is a position that you can't just be like, I'm thinking I'll go with the second option today. No. You got to go with your guy. It's
like a marriage, Jake. It's like a marriage, someone who has multiple partners in a marriage, right? But if you had a quarterback, the next one up, that's going to be your main. And so you can't have a main that's just not doing what main things do. And so, and like I said, I keep referring to the Rams, what they had to go through with Wolford and, just that whole process. Unfortunately, he was not able to win football games, for the Rams while Matthew Stafford was out. And they struggled. Jake, all last year we were struggling doing that Believe in Rams podcast because they just didn't have viable quarterbacks to go and win. And Haener, you mentioned he's a gamer. So, hey, come on in and game, Jake. They need guys that can go in and play. And thankfully for the Saints, they got Taysom Hill to back them up and get them out of any type of trouble. So that's a great problem to have.
And I'll trust Jake Haener every day of the week with his mobility and just how he plays. I could trust him to run the scout team. So, now all of a sudden he's killing 2 birds with 1 stone. And I mean, the way the NFL is going, I think the direction is the league needs to set a precedent that you don't have 3 quarterbacks shouldn't count against your roster. Because at the end of the day, I think teams should be allowed to carry 3 into the day. They should be able to address 3, and it shouldn't go against, the limit. Because I think it's a position that's very dangerous. It's a position where now all of a sudden, if I only carry 2, I can't activate my 3rd guy on the sidelines. Now I have to use my kicker or my punter or my wide receiver that played, quarterback in high school a little bit. You know what I mean? So I want to see an adjustment to that. And I wonder if the Saints are one of the teams that were pushing for that, because that actually was pushed for and ultimately declined at the owners' meeting. So that's something to keep in mind. But the Buccaneers, your old team here.
Let's go.
All right. This draft, they kicked off the right way. They go out and they grab interior. Everyone keeps comparing this guy to Aaron Donald because he wears the Pitt helmet, right?
Yeah.
But Kalijah Cansey, so hear me out. Undersized defensive lineman in Tampa Bay. And you're thinking about Aaron Donald? I'm thinking about Warren Sapp, my guy. That's what I'm thinking about. Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying he is Warren Sapp, but that, the quick, feet and everything. Cansey's a really good pick there. Then they go out and they get Cody Malk, who, is my guy. I interviewed him and we talked about him. He still got the teeth? Yeah. I remember that interaction we had at one of our shows. I love Cody Malk. I don't care if you play him at tackle. I don't care if you play him at guard. Does he play over Godkey at right tackle? That's the question. I don't know. But does he need to? No, because he could play right guard. He could play left guard, So I think this gives them plenty of options in that room. I thought I wasn't high on Yaya Diaby. I appreciate his story. He's been through a lot. Just from scouting him, I thought he was more of a day 3, 5th, 6th round pick. So I thought that was a little bit of a reach. But if you like the guy, you like the guy. Sir Vassier Dennis is somebody in the 5th round. That's one of my guys. That was a top 10 linebacker on my board. You're a linebacker. I'm excited to get your thoughts on him in a sec. Payne Durham is just kind of a plug and play, tight end 2, tight end 3. You already had O'Keefe, and you had, Cade Otton made significant strides last year. So he doesn't need to do really anything. He could be tight end 3, develop. I would say he's more of a blocking tight end with some, hidden upside in the passing game. And then you look, Josh Hayes, DB out of Kansas State. I like that pick. Trey Palmer and Jose Ramirez I really like because, first off, Max Crosby put Eastern Michigan on the map when he got picked out of there and became a star. Jose Ramirez has some juice off the edge. And then Trey Palmer is speed, man. You look at Trey Palmer, he's going to add speed to that wide receiver room that has Mike Evans, Russell Gage, Chris Godwin. I think Palmer has a chance to compete for that 4th spot. I think it's wide open. And they added a UDFA and Rakim Jarrett and Kurt Warner's son, Cade Warner. So we'll talk about that, but just kind of going through it, I'm going to give the Bucs a B. I'm going to say they won the draft out of all the teams. They hit those 2 guys hard. They focused on some needs. Also, best player available. They got my guy Servassier Dennis, and they got Trey Palmer and Jose Ramirez. Those are guys that stand out to me. I'm going to give them a B, Cam.
Okay. I like it, Jake. I'm gonna give them a B plus, right? I'm a little bit biased, Jake, so I'm gonna bump that up to a B plus there. Kalijah Kancey, Jake. I mean, come on, fam.
We talked about it.
They crushed it with that one, right? Kalijah Kancey is not your Aaron Donald, but he went to the Aaron Donald pass rush camp, right? He has the Aaron Donald hologram in the locker room. That's now the Aaron Donald locker room. But Kalijah Kancey, love to see a guy like that, at the Buccaneers. Just kind of going through their defensive linemen. You got William Golston, who's a bigger guy, but you got Vita Vea as well. He's about 6'3", 3-something. So Kalijah and him, they can definitely cause some problems down low there. Akeem Hicks, Patrick O'Connor, and then Raheem Roaches. That's someone as well who's a shorter guy, but very explosive. He uses his hands really well. So I love that addition to the defensive line at the Buccaneers. And then you got great linebackers that sit right behind him as well, Levante David and Devin White. I know Devin White requested that trade there, Jake. So we'll kind of see. We'll see where that ends up.
It's pretty up in the air.
I mean, if I were the Buccaneers, I wouldn't want to let him go either, right?
No, but going out and getting Dennis, that shows at least there's some sort of urgency. Like, okay, in the 5th round, but like Dennis is a good player, and they got 2 pick guys.
There you go. It's a trust thing, right? When you got one guy that's in front of you in Kalijah Kancey, and then you got Dennis behind him, whether that be running the second team or whatever that is, but that just brings in trust. That brings in more energy and juice to that piece. And then you go back to your Dennis pick. I love that pick there, Jake, right? We mentioned Devin White. We're not sure what that looks like, but Dennis, had a 42-inch vertical, 10.5 broad jump. My man is a monster, missing fewer than 5% of his tackling opportunities. So we go back to your branch from Alabama that got drafted to the Lions. I think he had a 5% missed tackle percentage as well. So guys, if you get sure tacklers, Devin White's a sure tackler, but a guy like Dennis adding another sure tackler to the piece, Levante David, who's a sure tackler, that defense alone is going to be something to reckon with. And then you got Yaya as well, Jake. He ran a 4.5, so it's kind of tough when the guy runs a 4.5. It's hard to look away from that. And so he ran a 4.5. I think he's gonna definitely raise some havoc, man. If I'm Levante David or Devin White, I want to line up on his side because I know he's gonna bring some smoke. So I like that a lot. And then going back to your offensive side, I know we talked a lot of defense. Like I said, a little biased, but your Cody Mauch, I love it. Ryan Jensen, I think, had a pick. The Buccaneers put a picture up of Ryan Jensen, who's a redhead as well, and Cody Mauch. And then almost like a stepbrothers thing where Cody was here on the picture and Ryan was smiling right. I was like, this is 2 redheads. This is what it's all about. But Cody Mauch, straight beast. I've seen some of his highlights and some of his tape, especially at the Senior Bowl. Jake, he was holding his own. He was looking ferocious, my man. So I see why the Rams went up and got him the second round at the 48th pick. So
the Bucks.
Sorry, the Bucks. Yeah, the Bucks. So it's good to see with Malk there, and then going finally back to the bottom of the draft list. You got Jose Ramirez coming out of Eastern Michigan. I mean, they got some guys that can make it happen on the defensive side, and they're just doubling up. I love the Rams. I'm sorry, the Buccaneers and what they did here in this draft. Like I said, I'm gonna go a B plus, Jake. Like I said, I'm a little bit biased, my man. So I'm gonna go a B plus. Love what they did and some of the additions that they made. So, I don't think. I think they did best out of the NFC South when it comes to the draft. I think they did the best here, but I do think they're going to have some problems with the Panthers. Right? The Panthers, I don't think did the best in the draft, but they got Bryce Young, so I think they're going to be the best in the NFC South. But I think the Buccaneers did the best in the draft here.
So they have Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. They have Shaq Barrett. Diaby doesn't have to start right away. I also don't know how they view him. Do they view him as a defensive end? They play more of a 3-4 style. So, probably not. But I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how they utilize him. That was really the one pick that stood out to me. Like, if you could have gotten the 4th or 5th, I would have been like, okay, the Dennis pick, and I know they didn't have a 4th round pick, but you get my point. The Dennis pick, though, if it would not surprise me if he ends up being a starting linebacker in Tampa. Payne Durham would not surprise me. He's kind of the type of guy they go after. Really had a really nice Senior Bowl, and then Trey Palmer. I think he's their wide receiver 4, and he's a 6th round pick. So I think the cool thing about it is that they have some consistency in the wide receiver room. They brought back the same guys: Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Russell Gage. And they left that 4th spot open for whoever wants it.
Scotty's gone. That's tough. Scotty Miller's gone.
Yeah, that's true. And so, I think we would be remiss to get through this without mentioning your guy Sean Tucker, who you've been pounding the stump for, fellow Cuse guy.
Let's go.
So his medicals sound like they're the reason why he went undrafted. Clearly, this guy, like I had him as a 4th round grade. You had him definitely day 2, I'd imagine. What's his upside here? Like, if say the medicals check out, and we're talking about a couple UDFAs, but we'll start with him, and then I wanted to bring up Rakim Jarrett and Cade Warner, but Sean Tucker, where do you see, like, is he a future starter in this league? Like, are you concerned? Like, to me, I think the medicals is just it's one of those things where in the heat of the moment, missing testing and whatnot, I think teams were more comfortable picking other guys. And this was a deep running back class, so I don't think it is directly reflective on his game. I think when you look at Rachaad White, you have Chase Edmonds, Keyshawn Vaughn, Patrick Laird. I think he can get right up there into that, running back 3 by the end of the year, put himself in position to maybe jump Edmonds next year, and then Rachaad White's probably the guy. And then when he goes and gets paid, then maybe, he steps in and he's the number 1 running back.
Yeah, I see that. I think I know one thing, running backs, they're going to get hurt, Jake, right? There's going to be a hamstring. There's going to be a concussion. There's going to be a shoulder. I think Sean Tucker, he's going to snap in the offseason. This is what I'm going to call it, Jake. In the offseason training camp, I think preseason, I think he's going to go off, right? He's going to face some of these teams, and you're going to see him on the highlight tape, the highlight reels, because he's going to break about 50-yard runs, 80-yard runs. So I think that's going to happen. I think second, I think he's going to have to play special teams, Jake. It's something that he probably hasn't had to do in a long time, but he's going to have to be your personal protector. He's going to have to sit back there and show that he can handle a special teams unit. He's going to have to rush some punts. He's going to have to return some kicks. He's going to have to do the dirty work, right? The nitty-gritty stuff that he's not used to really doing at Syracuse. So I think he's going to have to do those things. But you mentioned the way he's going to climb up that running back room. I think it's going to get done. Like I said, I think he's going to stay healthy, and he's going to have to stay healthy come the preseason. Though that's the only way to combat some of those things. So if he stays healthy, I think he's going to go off, and I think he will be your Rams. Sorry, your Buck. I keep talking about Rams.
You played for both teams twice, so
yeah, exactly. I appreciate that. He will. Sean Tucker will be the Buccaneers preseason MVP. That's how well he's going to play. That's how he's going to be the preseason MVP. And when the season starts, there you go. If he stays healthy, he will be the Buccaneers preseason MVP. And I think going into the season, they're going to be like, damn, should we start him? I know we got this other, but should we start him? I think that'll be his storyline.
I like that. And you know, it sucks anytime you go through that process and you get hurt, but you know, I think he's obviously maintaining a positive attitude. He's already signed and everything. Real quick, we don't have a ton of time, but Baker Mayfield, Kyle Trask, okay? Baker Mayfield, to me, he starts, no question, over Kyle Trask. I was surprised the Bucs did not go after a quarterback. Where were you on that? They don't even have another quarterback on the roster. They didn't even sign anybody. So were you a little surprised? Do you think Baker could get maybe a longer-term deal after this year? Is that the goal here?
Yeah, it sounds like Baker might be that guy there. Kyle Trask, I'm not convinced he is at the moment. But I would say too, during the offseason leading up to the season, I think there's going to be some type of movement. Free agency, I know Carson Wentz is still out there. There's going to be some type of movement because it's not adding up right now. So I think Baker Mayfield, he's going to step into a bigger role, and I think there's going to be something that's going to happen in the offseason where they're going to bring a guy in and then have them play as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So that is going to do it before we head on out. As always, special happy birthday to former Packers and Washington Hall of Fame linebacker Dave Robinson. Turns 82 today. Three-time NFL champ, two-time Super Bowl champ, two-time All-Pro, three-time Pro Bowler. He played 10 years of his career with the Packers, 2 years in Washington, and he started 155 games with 27 interceptions. And I'm sorry, my guy, I don't have sack numbers and tackle numbers because they didn't exist yet.
It's all good, but hey, he's 82. He made it out, and yeah, happy birthday.
Absolutely. So this has been presented by Bet Online. Be sure to follow at Cameron Lynch 50. You can follow me at JK Boga. You can follow the show at Off the Edge Show. And we'll be back next time. Until next time, we'll see you guys soon. Later, folks.